Welcome to our Saturday Q&A with Emmanuel. Thank you to all of you who are joining across the globe. Folks from all parts of the world are tuning in today. I love you adding your greetings and your places of your locations. So I see Netherlands, Slovenia, England, Portugal, Guatemala, Canada, all parts of the US, including Missouri and Arkansas, just to name a few. So nice to see you all. We've got people logged in on Facebook, Crowdcast, and YouTube. Welcome. For those of you who are new, my name is Crystal. I'm with Ascension One Collective, the foundation that supports the work of the channel. I'm here today to ask all your questions. Last we came together, we explored connecting with the guides in an energetic transmission with the Elohim. This week, we'll continue to explore this topic with the guide Emmanuel. We will have the opportunity to ask questions of this celestial being. We've created a two-part session to give you some time to receive the energetic transmission from the week before, integrate it, and allow for the topic-based questions to emerge over the week. So we look forward to answering these questions for you today. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to type it into the Questions tab at the bottom of the screen in Crowdcast. The production team will then choose a few questions to ask the channel from this list. Before you ask the question, ask yourself, what's the best way to ask this question that would serve this group? We found that Emmanuel's answers are typically phrased in a way that serves the greater good. So if you're looking for a personal answer, the answer may not align with your expectation. The energy field pulls us into an interesting collective state. So you may find that if you have a question in your mind, you receive the answer in someone else's question or silently inside yourself. For those who are new, I will explain the process that a seal goes through to open the connection that we refer to as the channel. This is a connection to both powerful energy and wisdom that during the sessions he will embody and bring through. The process for a seal to get into trance includes spontaneous movements of his body and hands, sometimes shaking of his body, fast breathing, and as the energy level rises, sometimes his eyes will roll upwards. It may not seem it, but it's all normal. His everyday human consciousness is still available to him while he's channeling, and he can stop the embodiment at any time. Once the energy field is established, Emmanuel will come through and deliver a wisdom transmission. Then I will ask your questions. As the session ends, we'll sit together in silence as the seal comes back into this state of awareness. For people who can support the work, it not only supports a seal, but it supports the whole production team. Many of you have supported the last session and have already supported this one. It's truly appreciated, and it really helps us keep this work accessible. We have links to the support options in your chats. Enjoy the session. I'll see you back here upon your return.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Saturday session. It's been almost a year where we started our live transmissions like this one, just about the time when the pandemic and the lockdown started. And it's been quite an incredible ride. The wealth of information, the wealth of energy and love that we have received through this opening, through the guides that we connect with, and through the energies that we connect with. And it has served so many people. Like yourself, thousands of others have joined. And many have continued their journey with us, deepening their own experiences, not just in receiving, but also becoming channels of their own, transmitters of their own, developing this inherent connection that's within. And for that, we have our advanced course starting in April, if you're curious. What I do may seem unique, but I believe that everyone has this inherent capability. Our bodies and our minds, our consciousness is capable of doing far more than we can imagine. And some of these capabilities have been observed and practiced and scribed in the ancient scriptures. And for some, it'll come naturally, and for some, it'll require consistent practice and devotion. Most importantly is getting into a place of silence within the mind and within the heart, having the body well taken care of, and so that the consciousness that is within us can expand and reach levels where it can actually connect with guides of higher frequencies, of higher planes. And at first, it may seem a little chaotic or uncontrolled, but eventually it will establish itself. Almost like finding the right radio channel on the radio, like these old radios where you can twist and turn. In these sessions, even though they are Q&As, observe how the answers land within you, not just the words, but the energy that comes along with the words, and even the energy in between the questions. There is some magic in there. And you don't have to listen really with a heart focus to every word that's coming through. Allow it to impact you. Allow yourself like a sponge to receive what is coming. And that which needs to be retained will be retained and integrated and embedded into your life. And of course, you can always read the transcripts afterwards and see the replays. It's a blessing to have you on this journey with us. And thank you for all of you that are tuning in. Blessings. Greetings. My name is Emmanuel. You have gathered here to listen, to learn, with curiosity, with awe of that which is possible within all of you, communication of another kind than the simplest forms of communication that are known to humanity, communication beyond language, hearing and speaking, communication that occurs directly through consciousness, the bridges that consciousness can build with all other forms of consciousness. The expansion of your being will require you to accept, to observe, and integrate the understanding that while you are an individualized being, a sovereign, autonomous experience, you have the ability to bridge to many other forms of consciousness, that you are intrinsically part of the collective of humanity, that you are intrinsically part of the greater conglomerate of forms of consciousness. You are connected to all that is. Yet the bridges of communication are not naturally developed. The only natural bridge that is established is the one to your own collective, human consciousness. This is the first bridge to fuel and to nourish. The first step will be for you to find silence in your own space. Silencing the mind has become inevitably challenging in this current societal structure, as the mind has become prioritized and praised for its achievements and accomplishments. Operating beyond the mind and its abilities to navigate you through this physical reality. The silence of the mind will become a critical aspect of understanding yourself and all that you are beyond your mind. Similarly, the silence of the heart. While the emotions and the spectrum of all emotions are a critical aspect of the human experience, a moment of silence of the heart will be required to listen to all that is. First, you will observe all that you are beyond your mind and your heart, your consciousness, all the aspects of unprocessed, unperceived, unseen elements in your field of consciousness. One by one, you will see more of who you are in these moments of silence. And as you get to know yourself better, this aspect of your being that seeks to understand all that you are, your subconscious, your unconscious, the entirety of your being, will eventually as well enter a state of silence, a state of balance. From this state, you will start to expand your awareness into the collective of humanity, the first and innate natural bridge. This bridge will make itself known in understanding your loved ones first, feeling what they're feeling, observing the unprocessed, the unseen, the deepest desires and the deepest thoughts, the deepest emotions that they hold. Some of you may consider this telepathy, yet it is no effort required as you observe the innate and natural bridge between you and all of humanity. And you can tune in as well as close off this innate bridge to all of humanity. This first step is required to understand the basic foundational aspects of your consciousness. From this first step, you will start to observe other forms of consciousness, plants, animals, this earth itself, celestial bodies. And you will connect with your consciousness to the consciousness of that which can be observed. All materialized form has consciousness. Even inanimate objects hold consciousness and carry information, knowledge, wisdom, and energy. Materialization in this reality requires first consciousness to exist, even in its simplest forms. Once these first foundational bridges have been established, you will find yourself in a safe and secure web of grounding, of love, and of support. You will understand the greater capabilities that your consciousness holds beyond allowing you to exist in this human identity and in this human form. And at first, the information and the communication that you seek will not be obvious. It will not reflect in the ways your current communication occurs. It will appear in your mind as well as in your heart as a form of knowing, at times as a form of knowing in your physical being, viscerally felt, viscerally known. The expansion and the bridges of your consciousness will allow communication to be received from all parts of your being. And this innate knowing will be a new form of communication for you. It will be a rich form of communication, delivering you more than words can express, delivering you feelings, indescribable visions, and sensations of a new kind. Beyond the forms of consciousness that you can observe in this material world, you will start to connect the forms of consciousness unseen with the human eye. Non-material forms of existence. Many planes of various frequencies hold life, hold consciousness. The complexities and the state of evolution of each of these forms of consciousness varies dramatically. And at times, the wisdom and the knowledge that is shared through connection with the non-material existence will be simple. Maybe even reduced down to a single word, a single guidance, a single yes or no. Translated into a visceral and internal knowing within you. Many of you will wonder, was it your mind that gave the answer? Or was it a connection that was now bridged? The only way to truly understand the difference between your mind as well as that which you receive from the bridges that you have built is through the silence that you will observe in your mind, in your heart, as well as in your body. A thought, an emotion, and a sensation that is induced through the openings, through the connections that you have established, will be clearly different than the thoughts, emotions, and sensations delivered from this intrinsic, autonomous individual that you are. In these experiments, in these expansions of your consciousness, you will learn to build bridges as well as to close connections. Too many bridges, too many connections consistently open, potentially will overwhelm your consciousness as well as your human mind, your human heart, and your human body. To upkeep these connections, to consistently maintain the purity and the silence of the mind, as well as the integrity of the communication. Practices will assist you along this way. Practices of observing your thoughts on a regular basis, of observing your emotions, of observing the sensations of your body and your physical form. These practices you will find across many lineages that humanity has birthed. Many lineages will hold many different forms of practices to silence the mind, the heart, as well as to care for the body and its well being. This foundational experience, this foundational practice, will be the one to assist you in the purity of your connections, in the purity of the messages that you receive, in the integrity of the communication that you will hold. Remember, you are intrinsically capable of that which will allow you to communicate with all forms of consciousness. Certain bridges will require a greater silence within you and a greater level of energy to reach for the frequencies that are available. Some of you will come with natural abilities that will make this developmental process easier. Some of you will require greater levels of practice and an increased sense of silence. Some of you have established bridges through many lifetimes in existence, bridges and frequencies that you are attuned to, that you will bring into this life with ease. The reopening of these bridges will become apparent. Some of you will require to complete important realizations in this current identity and form that you are before expanding your consciousness to other forms. Hence, the silence of the mind and the heart will play a critical role in the realizations that you must gain before expanding your consciousness to all forms of consciousness. The most important bridge to be built is with all parts of your own being. In the totality of your being, you will have found a strong foundation from which you can operate, expand, and extend your reach. The information that is delivered to you, the energies that are delivered to you, will support your life and are meant to be one perspective, an additional perspective to the many perspectives that exist. Truth in itself is the totality of all perspectives. Therefore, remember, it is only an individualized perspective. A single perspective carries a single truth. Absolute truths can only be received as the totality of all perspectives have been seen. You have come to a place in your life and in your evolution that demands a greater reflection, a greater observation of who you are. You have come to a place in your life where your heart requires tending, your mind requires gentle reflections and realizations, your body requires listening to. These are natural unfoldings, requesting a strong foundation for the expansion of your consciousness. And in this expansion of your consciousness, as you develop these bridges with other forms of consciousness, you will learn to navigate new forms of relationships, relationships with materialized forms of consciousness as well as non-material consciousness. You will learn to understand the nature of relationship even more clearly beyond this individualized human form that you are. Relationships on the level of consciousness, relationships on the level of energy, on the level of love. Most importantly, on this journey of expansion, you will find bridges to forms of consciousness with information and energy that may or may not please you. A certain resonance was opened to build the bridge in the first place. It is not by random act or coincidence. The connections that you have established are occurring. The information, the communication, and the visions are delivered to you. Receive, observe, and allow the core of your being to choose to continue this opening with conscious choice, or understand the aspect of your being that requires this connection and this bridge in the first place. And allow that part of your being to explain itself. to provide the perspective of the benefits and the importance of all connections provided to you. This will become an important skill, an important natural capability, an expanded capability of your being. Communication beyond words, emotions beyond the heart, and sensations beyond your body. Your consciousness will carry all forms of communication for you, and the time will come where humanity will evolve beyond words exchanged as a unified collective that has understood communication through the entire collective consciousness. The pathways, the bridges within humanity are established and mostly dormant. Only in the closest relationships these bridges are activated and felt. The evolution of humanity, the evolution of the individual will continue. The expansion, the learning, the development of the capabilities to communicate, to receive, and to transmit as a form of consciousness, as an individualized part of the human consciousness collective. You will feel, you will sense, you will see all that is human. You will communicate with all that is human at ease and immediately. And this communication will allow for greater understanding of unity, for greater understanding of unification. You are the collective, and the collective is you. Once this concept is integrated in your being, the understanding of many forms of consciousness to be part of a greater collective will become natural. Thank you for listening to my words. I will now answer some of your questions.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Denise asks, does every human incarnate with specific guides, unique to each lifetime? Or do guides accompany a soul across multiple lifetimes? And do our guides communicate with each other to collaborate on the guidance given, like a council?
Individuals that incarnate into the human form will bring connections that have been established in prior incarnations, in prior forms of material kind. These are learnings, frequencies that a soul is attuned to. Yet, in the incarnation of an individualized human being, these bridges and the connections are dormant and will require to be activated. At the right time, the connections that are listening to the bridges innately established within the individual will open up. Additionally, the individual will build new bridges to new forms of consciousness, as you call guides. These new bridges will bring forth a new flavor and new perspectives, additional perspectives that will allow the individual to evolve even further than with the perspectives that they have received and continue to receive from previous lifetimes. Communication between all forms of consciousness can be established, yet are not guaranteed. Forms of consciousness exist in all planes, in all dimensions, in material and in non-material form. The vastness and the complexity of consciousness in all forms that it exists does not warrant a connection or communication between all forms of consciousness, yet intrinsically allows for bridges to be built when required. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Marta asks, how do we communicate with plants and animals to gain access to their knowledge and wisdom? And do we have a role of support towards lower forms of consciousness in the same way as higher forms support the human collective? Thank you.
Communication with plants and animals will occur as you continue to build your relationship with all forms that are alive and inanimate on this plane of existence. It will require, as mentioned before, a silence of the mind and a silence of the heart, that perception beyond the eyes and the senses of this human form. A touch, an energetic bond, a request to the animal as well as to the plant, yet beyond the plant and the animal that is before you, requesting its consciousness to communicate with you. And some of these forms will deny your request, as you may not seem ready in the moment. And you will continue the purification and the silencing within you to truly build new bridges of this kind. Animal consciousness and plant consciousness carries tremendous wisdom of the nature and the purpose of its existence on this plane, of the part and the role that they play in this great ecosystem and this great experiment. This wisdom, knowledge is accessible to those that are able to listen, to those that are willing to take the journey towards silence and towards building bridges of this unique kind. Many humans lived close with nature. Many humans lived in deep communication with animals as well as plants, as well as inanimate objects, as well as all non-material forms. This intrinsic concept of connection and communication is not new. Your ancestors had a stronger connection with your direct environment, and the quickened evolution of your mind, of your societies, of your infrastructures, and of your technology directed your attention and your priority to different realities. While this evolution has been equally important, an innate power and innate connection within you has been forgotten. The closest connections around you outside of human consciousness are the ones that live on this plane, on this reality with you. And they carry wisdom, knowledge, energy, and love, support for your evolution and for your life. Our recommendation is to rebuild, recreate, and to reintegrate your connection to nature, and you will find yourself with plenty bridges to receive from. Many forms of consciousness, of lower planes, of lower evolutionary states, can and will request relationships with human consciousness, with those that are willing and ready to connect. As you have received guidance and perspective, you will provide guidance and perspectives to those that request your attention. And you will proclaim that your perspective is a singular perspective, and it is meant to give an additional direction, guidance, and support in their evolution. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Veronica asks, the guides describe that complex ways of communication have been through energy and frequency, delivering information through intrinsic receptors within the human form. Do all humans have the same type of receptors? Can you elaborate how we may recognize these receptors? Thank you.
All humans are capable of receiving and transmitting information. It is intrinsically embedded within your consciousness, and the way your consciousness is embedded into your mind, into your body, as well as into your heart. As your consciousness expands its reach through the energy levels that are available to you, the receptors that are established within your consciousness will build the bridges that have been mentioned before. A resonance, a frequency, with the right levels of energy within you will allow the bridges to be established. with the right authorization and agreements. As these bridges are established, your consciousness, as it receives energy in the form of information, energy in the form of love, energy in the form of wisdom, guidance, healing. Your body, your heart, and your mind will translate this information in a way that you can receive, in a way that you can observe, in a way that unmistakably you know that this communication is beyond your identified human self. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Ramsey asks, can everyone connect to divine sources of consciousness directly, or only specific human beings? And are there any specific interventions necessary? Thank you.
After a certain evolutionary stage of consciousness reaching frequencies and establishing its new foundation, a form of consciousness will be considered a divine form. These forms will provide guidance and assistance in the evolution of consciousness, including the support for humanity. Humanity's evolution will require many individuals to reach, to expand in their access to consciousness. Higher frequencies require an increased level of energy within the human form to reach and to establish consistent bridges. At first, merely reaching these levels of frequency will be challenging for the individual. When an individual finds itself determined, as well as with a specific role and responsibility to play, it will be granted a unique opportunity to be a bridge on behalf of humanity. These bridges are established within individuals in order to provide energy as well as wisdom transmissions at an easier access point for all of those that otherwise will require increased levels of energy to reach these forms. The adjustments, the wisdom that we provide through this host, allow for the development of all of those that receive, so that the bridges can be established within all of you, so that all of you can become bridges to consciousness, to divine forms of existence, so that all of you can become a support mechanism for all of humanity on their journey of evolution purification, and expansion. In this current state of humanity's development, many individuals will be granted these special connections that were otherwise limited in order to keep humanity in its own evolutionary state, untainted with many perspectives of divine consciousness and of divine forms, to allow humanity to mature in its own learning and its own perspectives. That time has come to completion. It is now the time for humanity to completely expand in its natural state to an evolved form of consciousness beyond this material experience. And for this evolution, the connection to all forms of divine consciousness will be required, and authorizations will be given to all individuals reaching these energy levels and levels of purification necessary to be a vehicle and a vessel of the divine. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Justin asks, if fundamentally all that exists is pure consciousness and non-material beings are equally as empty and no more real than material beings, what purpose or benefit does it serve to identify with the beings associated with the channel rather than simply identifying with the void or pure consciousness itself?
You may choose to you may choose to identify with whichever consciousness you are connecting to. Establishing bridges to all of consciousness may overwhelm your existence. At first, understanding the expansive nature of who and what you are, understanding the intrinsic connection to all of humanity, understanding the immediate connections to all material forms on this plane, continuing to develop your understanding of non-material forms on this plane and all material and non-material forms beyond this plane. It is a succession. It is an evolution. The steps cannot be omitted without consequences. Our recommendation is for you to move one step at a time and to establish a firm foundation before moving to the next step. And the expansion of your consciousness will hold integrity, sustainability, and the support it requires to support others in their evolution. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Tina asks, I understand that guides need for us to ask for their assistance, but I was wondering if I can ask for them to assist my loved ones.
Assistance from non-material existence on this plane is limited and will be limited until the very end of this existence. The deliveries are most importantly in providing realizations for the individual themselves. Just the way you establish a realization and change your choices, the direction of your life, the perspectives that you hold. These realizations will occur for all humans at different times. Your desire to support your loved ones is natural and intrinsic, and your desire to support your loved ones with the guidance that you have received is natural and intrinsic. Your loved ones may or may not be ready to receive the realizations that are the next in line for them. They will be as you continue your journey, as you continue the increased level of development, the expansion, as well as setting the foundations for your growth, providing compassionate, kind reflections, presence of its deepest and purest kind. You will see the transformation of your loved ones. You will see the realizations that they will seek out due to your evolution. More than other guides assisting your loved ones, it will be you and your transformation that will change and transform them in the most powerful way. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Michael asks, with so many issues with gurus these days, what will it take for humans to trust their own inner guidance? How can we empower people to be on their own journey rather than following someone who says they have all the answers?
Power is given, it is not taken. All of those that follow give their power away. All of those that listen with curiosity, listen to learn and to evolve. It is a natural exchange of presence. It requires no surrender of power. Just as in this very moment, you are equally empowered to listen or not to listen, to receive or not to receive. It is an unconditional gift from us to you, and it is your choice to receive, to consider, and to reflect upon that which is shared with you. And every piece of reflection and every piece of perspective can truly empower you to create perspectives of your own, to consider establishing a purified mind, a purified heart, and a purified physical form. As you continue this journey of purification and of expansion, you will continue to see the powers that you hold within you, the guidance that is accessible to you, immediately, intrinsically within you, as well as immediately and intrinsically outside of you. And this guidance will support your life. It will support the life of others outside of you. The perspective that some individuals are victims and other individuals are villains, and it requires saviors to stop the villains from victimizing the victims, and the victims from being villainized by the villains, is flawed. All interactions in human form are divine by nature. All interactions deliver important learning and growth processes for human consciousness. All interactions beyond the judgments of the human mind are necessary, critical, and an innate part of humanity's evolution. You learn by interaction, you learn by experimentation. The important moment is taking the moments, taking the experiences and the experiments, the learnings into the next steps of your evolution. Learning from that which you have observed and finding new experiments, new interactions, new standards, principles, and values by which you will operate. These are the learnings that are available to you. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Emmanuel. We have one last question for you today. Marta asks, what non-material forms of consciousness are part of our ecosystem? And what specific purposes do they fulfill? Thank you.
This earth holds many variations of non-material consciousness, of simplest kind as well as of complex kind. Non-material forms that have never held a material form on this plane are part of the ecosystems to continue the cycles of creation and the cycles of destruction necessary to move the energy as well as to move consciousness in the right balance. Humanity has observed non-material kinds of consciousness of nature as spirits, the spirits of nature, the spirits of the elements, the spirits of animals, the spirits of plants, the spirits of the mountains and of the rivers, the spirits of weather patterns. Beyond the spirits of nature, the spirits of forms that have existed before humanity on this plane continue to provide support and assistance. Civilizations of considerable evolutionary state continue to deliver their support from non-material form. Humans that have lived before, that now operate at a higher frequency, yet without material form, considered ascended masters, continue to support humanity. At times, forms of consciousness without material form will be authorized to enter this plane and to support interventions and to support changes and adjustments to bring forth a greater balance and to initiate important processes required for humanity's evolution. Civilizations beyond humanity's, civilizations of celestial kind, will at times enter the human plane and provide the support required. As you can see, non material existence, from its simplest forms to its most complex forms, can and will be part of humanity's plane of existence. Humanity, as well as this plane, the ecosystem of this plane, will continue to be supported by creative as well as destructive forces. Only through creation and destruction and balance can this plane continue to exist. Thank you for your question. Thank you for the time that you have assigned to receive our words, our guidance, and this unconditional gift that we provide. May this delivery impact your lives in the best possible way. Welcome back. Thank you all for joining. I'm still a bit in the zone and quite a journey and exploration today on all forms of consciousness and connecting with guides, connecting with material and non-material forms of consciousness. It's definitely worthwhile to look at this transcript again. At least I will have to. Thank you so much for joining, and see you at some point again.
Indeed, that was a rich topic. Welcome back, everyone. As we're coming back, I have a few gentle closing remarks. If you'd like to continue this journey, we have a few ways to do it. We have designed a home for all of Ascension One Collective's online community in Mighty Networks, which you can join by using the link placed in the chat now. Those of you who are enrolled in courses are already a part of this community, but I encourage you to peruse our new spaces and topics, which you can see in the greater community under Ascension One Collective. See what everybody's talking about. Our community calls continue every week, and we invite you to join our weekly Monday integration call. We are continuing our advanced practitioner courses. So for those who have not yet experienced the first course, Base Camp begins April 6th. In Base Camp, Emmanuel is our admissions director, and when you pre-enroll, your name is submitted to Emmanuel for consideration. Pre-enrollment is now available on our website, and if you're in Crowdcast, there's a direct link to pre-enrollment at the bottom. For those who have already enrolled, we'll share your names with Emmanuel this upcoming week. Last month, we returned to the road for the first time in more than a year to do sacred site work, completing energetic and alignment work on the land throughout Big Island of Hawaii. This unique work helps raise the capacity of the land to support transformation and awakening worldwide. We created a topic within our Mighty Networks community called Sacred Site Travel with a Seal and the Channel. Check out a debrief from a seal in Hawaii there, and watch for the invitation to the Sacred Sites Passport, which will give you an opportunity to experience this journey along with us. This work is possible because of your support. As you would imagine, it takes a village to bring the channel to this space and then beam it out to you all. If you find this of value, please consider supporting us to keep this work accessible. There are links in the chat with options for giving. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for contributing your questions, your presence, and your time. I see the light in all of you, and it makes me smile. Take care.